Hi everyone, yes, so welcome to an amazing new relationship season with AWOKH business and with Ribea Elise. What we are discussing during this season is our relationship discussion focuses on the fruit of your relationship. And we want to focus this month on the fruits of the seasons that your relationship brings along, and it goes along with the journey of relationship in general. What we have discussed last month is the vine that I tasted with enjoying and appreciating the finest the finest educations of your relationships, the finest season of your relationship. The grapes that I then tasted within appreciating the most flavoringness of that. That is the season of your relationship in general. And then with that, the flavoring wine that differs within seasons. And therefore, with this month's discussion, in this month's relationship discussion, we want to focus on the fruits of the season that goes along, and that is the journey of the relationship. We've mentioned before that we have learned that our relationships can be challenged and can challenge us a lot. And when we are challenged in our seasons, we need to allow ourselves to listen to what is required of us and how are we required to respond in our seasons. And when we allow ourselves to listen to our response in our seasons, we allow ourselves to listen to our relationships challenges and to listen to us within our seasons, right? When we allow ourselves to listen to what's required of us and how we are required to react in our seasons and how we are required to respond in our seasons, we allow ourselves to listen to the you in your season, to listen to what is it that are challenging you, and to learn how to appreciate and to learn how to deal with that. And that is the relationship itself, and that is the you that might be challenged in your relationship sometimes. And therefore we are focusing on the seasons after that. And with focusing on the seasons, we want to focus on that that is your attitude that you allow yourself in your seasons. And today I just found this in my house, and it reminds me of the winning opportunities that life gives you, right? It is that is the color of you in your season. We said this weekend that with our AWOKH fashion opportunity, we represent our favorite season color, right? And we have our beige color, that's our favorite color, and then this is one of our favorite season colors and our favorite winter colors, right? And with that, the winning opportunity that life gives you in your season. And when you allow yourself to be in that is your winning opportunity, right? Your opportunity that you are given in life, but that reaction that requires you to respond to that is the fine you, that is the you that reminds yourself of the birthness of seasons, right? And with reminding ourselves of the birthness of our seasons, remind ourselves that the birth womb goes along with different seasons, right? And we're gonna focus on that today. When we are reminded of the seasons in our birth womb and how we might be challenged in our seasons, right? We remind ourselves of the different stages of pregnancy, remind ourselves of the different stages of the womb itself, and of the different stages that you respond differently in that is how your immune system responds to the pregnancy itself. And when we allow ourselves to listen to what is requirement of us in our relationships, we allow ourselves to listen to our seasons in general. Let me just rephrase that. When we allow ourselves to listen to the requirements that we have to respond in a season, then we allow ourselves to listen to our seasons in its completeness. When we remind ourselves of the response of the birth womb, the birth womb reminds ourselves of the representation woman, right? Of your every representation of you being born as a woman. We are in a generation where relationships are challenged with that. That is, the man marries the man, the woman marries the woman. Why we call it a challenge? Because we have not been educated to accept that that is the birth womb in its completeness. And the birth womb in its completeness is humanity in general on earth, and everything that are required of humanity, and where humanity finds themselves at in the different seasons, in the different countries, the different nationalities, and the different colors. And such is a relationship requirement to respond to that. That is you in your season, that is your birth womb in season, that is an education of life in general, and that is life itself, right? That is an opportunity that life gives you to walk on a journey that is called a relationship, and on a journey that births families and brings families forth, and on a journey that is the romantic emotions of the human being itself, right? Your emotion, your seasons, your different way of responding, and how you are going to respond differently with every relationship is the amazing journey that we call today the fruits of the seasons. That is the seasons of the relationship in its completeness. The seasons of the relationship, the fruits of the seasons remind us of the birthness, right? Remind us of the birth womb. And when we are reminded today of the birth womb, we are reminded to listen to how to respond in the different relationships that we find ourselves in. And when we learn to listen to how do we respond, we allow ourselves to listen to the different seasons. Get it? When we say the different seasons, we exactly speak of winter, spring, autumn, and summer season, right? If we can really find ourselves in listening to the completeness of our seasons in general, right? Spring season comes forth, it prepares for summer season. Summer season comes forth, it prepares for autumn season. Autumn season comes forth, and it prepares for our winter season in general. We call our spring season the birth season, the beginning season. And our relationship spring season is the finest parts of the grape vines, that for us we call it the vines, and for someone else they, because the vine and the different requirement of the vine to produce the amazing grapes in season is gonna be exactly that. There is gonna be a spring season, right? And when we listen to our different seasons, we find ourselves in this quietness of listening, and that we call our summer season, right? When we are in quietness and listening to our relationship itself, And how do we respond to the different emotions involved in this relationship? Emotionally, you sometimes feel connected to a person, and emotionally, you are required to listen in the quietness of that. Of how are you required to respond to this? That is your relationship with someone else in general. And when you listen to the quietness of that, we call it the summer season of that. It can come, the reaction sometimes comes forth in the warmest of emotions, and the reaction sometimes can be in the silentness of no word spoken, and rather than that, that requires you to listen to your season in general. We then have in our quiet listening that requirement to respond to that. That is our relationship itself. The requirement to respond to how someone else emotionally feels towards you, right? Or feels about you, right? We have that to listen to how does someone else finds themselves having to listen to the relationship in general. And we have the requirement to then find ourselves in making decisions concerning that. And the decisions in that will be at least defined today as the autumnness of the leaves that are falling out, the leaves that vocals on our podcast Revelation Air season are revealed and that are visible and that you can really notice, and that is really that will be at Elise says it is the autumnness of the relationship. And in the autumnness of the relationship, there's emotional connections, there's the loudness of words, there's the loudness sometimes of reactions, and there is the loudness of where you find yourself at, and of how you realize what the relationship are actually, and what the voice in the relationship are actually speaking to you about, right? What is it that you are listening to in your relationship? When we decide to listen to the different seasons in our relationship, we decide on what we are gonna respond to. Those different ways of listening exactly becomes that is the autumnness in the season, the different colors of the autumn leaves that falls from the tree that is standing, because you find yourself still in the relationship of it, and the educational requirement of you to decide how do you respond to that. That is your relationship itself, and that is your relationship season itself. That is the fruit of the vine itself, the preparation of the fruits that are being produced, of the grapes that are being produced by the vines, and the differences and the different types of grapes that might be visible before it's the complete season for the grapes to really produce that is the fruitness in it, right? And when we say the fruitness in it, it becomes the tastierness of the grapes, because when you listen to the vineyard, right, and to the voicing season, and to the autumnness of the grapes that are preparing for the season's completeness, then you listen to that grapes, that you as a human being decide that this grapes is fine for me, or this grapes is not fine. This glass of wine is a tasty wine in season, or this glass of wine, can sometimes be harmful to me. Sometimes wine gives you a headache. You buy a bottle of wine, you're so used to it, sometimes the next season you just get a headache just only from that glass of wine. And such is the autumn season of our relationships. Such is the autumn season of the vineyard itself. The fruit that are being produced that are not yet ready in season, but some people want to taste, some people want to taste whether the fruit are right. And when you taste the fruit, you have sometimes the opportunity to decide for you where you find yourself at, and how you are going to want to enjoy the grapes. Sometimes when we have a little bit of a vineyard by our own houses. I have a small kind of, I don't know how you call it, right? But there's grapes there, and it produces in season, I've mentioned before, and I'll discussing. And when we find ourselves at that we can monitor the season of it, we exactly walking in a completeness of listening and the educational journey that finds itself in the relationship itself, in those decision makings that we often sometimes just want to want to learn when we are being introduced to someone, is the quiet education that is sometimes the autumn season that appears with visibility that is there in currentness, but the completeness of the grapes of that has not yet enjoyed its complete and full season. I remember when I was in South Africa, I really wanted to do the wine tour, right? I really wanted to do the wine tour with my friends and with a group of my friends. And I really wanted to enjoy the experience and the education itself. And I remember how I was put off when I learned, and when I Googled in on my page and I saw that whole Malvina Instagramness and how they exactly went, and she went from the Netherlands with a team of people. And I was so, people, when you are working on a project, and you know how some people can want to grab and run with it. They tune in sometimes onto your videos and they run with it, and sometimes you are just, so dysfunctioned on what you are sometimes trying to do. And it is sometimes so abusive when we learn that we are educating in a season and someone else grabs the work and runs with it, and then they set the work all over the place, and the world look exactly like it's looking, just by business owners that sometimes want to find themselves maybe sometimes Googling in on you, and then they book the flight. I was many times saying, but why are they flying every time I'm flying to South Africa, right? It happened ever since 2018, right? And I was on my way to South Africa, and I came to New Zealand in 2017, and in 2018 I went every year to go and have to go and enjoy South Africa, because when we're there in South Africa, we never had time to enjoy, and we never have time to enjoy, because we are always just with friends and family and just appreciating that. And sometimes the finances are not there. And then when I came to New Zealand in 2017, I really wanted to just enjoy that. That is the Ribea Elise in the season, right? And that is what I've been educated about. I've been working in the vineyard ever since I was in secondary school, right? So it has always been a journey that life educated me to be part of, right? And I remember coming to New Zealand in 2017 and planning, and every year I traveled to South Africa. And the next moment I was just Googling in and wanting to just book to go to the vineyard and to go on the wine tour. And the next moment there, Malvina flies with her friends. And there they are, just the whole education that I was on. And then I remember I started with AWOKH in that year with Purpose Room. And it felt odd with me, and it felt odd to really find yourself on this amazing journey. And it's the amazing education of life, and it forms every part of a boat business. Every season and every challenge is part of that. But when people sometimes grab your business and runs with it, then it can sometimes be that is the challenging season that you find yourself when autumn prepares for winter, when Ribea prepares to go and just have this amazing experience. Someone else grabs and run with it, and the education are sometimes hindered with that. And that's why we say we're going to do our relationship discussion also on our podcast and make it available on our podcast also. But we have so much hindrances on where we find ourselves at in our educations. But what we want everyone to do is don't grab our work and run with it, because the education is going to be all over the place, and it's going to be not where and how Ribea has been educated to present it. And so let's continue just on our autumn season, and the relationship of that is that when we find ourselves then in the autumn season of that, autumn then prepares for the preparation and the completeness of the grape season. And we call the preparedness and the completeness of that our winter season, because people would grab a grape off of the branch, and they would enjoy the grapes, right? And it's like winter, it becomes like winter to that grapes. And sometimes that winter can exactly be relationship in general. Sometimes the way we handle one another in relationships, we introduce to people sometimes, and the people are the most kindest people in the whole world, and no one could imagine that the people would sometimes be aggressive or aggressed by anything, right? And then we learn sometimes in relationships, when relationships are challenged, then it's like someone are tearing those grapes, and they are just tearing the grapes, and they're enjoying the completeness of the fruit. And then when we look around, we say, wow. In our house, we used to say, wow, this is my piece of grapes, don't touch this part. Don't touch this part of the vineyard. This is amazingly just for me. And every one of us always had our choice, and our little vineyard that we had there. And we all enjoy it in the season, and we all exactly knew when someone was there, right? And that becomes our winter season in a relationship, when a relationship are sometimes not challenged, but the characteristics of your partner are sometimes being introduced, and you are sometimes learning that this is your partner in general, and you are sometimes learning that this partner sometimes pull the grapes, and they just enjoy the fruit of completeness of that, and they leave sometimes just the branches for you. And many times, if we are not really listening, if we are not listening and we are not responding to the completeness of our seasons, then we do not know how to respond with the fruitness that are produced in your seasons, right? And sometimes the fruits are produced in the most winterless of seasons, but it does not mean, I always say, when your relationship are challenged, you do not stay in the relationship because of the fruits that is now visible, and because of the education that has been educated to us, that in the fruitness of our seasons is when the most choicest wine are being produced. We therefore allow ourselves to listen to that season that can sometimes be the most argumentative, the most loudness seasons, the most requirement for you to respond with that. That is the protective requirement for you to respond in that season. And when the season are ripping and tripping on you, and then you allow yourself to respond to that. That is the visibility of that fruit that is presented in its completeness, right? The visibility of the fruit that are being represented in the completeness of the season. And while we say that, we want to focus on relationships currently, and where humanity currently finds themselves at challenge toward the requirements, and how parenting has been different for our generation in general. Our generation is finding themselves in so much argument because of man and woman, and the relationship is exactly also that. And the birth womb has educated us that the relationship it was the man and the woman, and it now has become the man, and the woman, because the seasons are that we are required to respond to that. That is a protective requirement for us being human beings on earth, but it is the acceptance of the baby born. And that's where in our relationships we are going to have to learn to accept the one the other. We are going to have to learn to accept the one partner, the next partner. If the relationship are challenging, we are going to have to learn to decide that this is a requirement for me to respond in this way, because we do not only sometimes, we always say, we do not only sometimes think about ourselves, but this is a requirement for me to respond to that. That is going to be non-abusive for you in person, but also non-abusive for you mentally, right? Because mentally, you can't sometimes sense the challenges that goes along with aggressive relationships. Mentally, you can't sometimes realize the pain that goes along with relationships that are sometimes so aggressive, and sometimes so offensive, and sometimes so abusive, and sometimes so disruptive to you as a human being, because it exactly disrupt everything of where you find yourself at. And when we are challenged in that way, I have learned out of my own experience, what we are required to do is to decide what is right for you in your season. And when you decide what is right for you, you don't necessarily decide whether you stay in a relationship. No, we always learn from relationships that there's that I've mentioned before, that in our marriage of 18 years, Dorian finds himself that way, Ribea finds herself that way. The aggression is exactly also that many times. But the requirement for us to listen to the fact that we have Tiara in the room, and that we are required to respond to that, there is a protective environment for the family in general, that is that when people and marriage partners can separate, that we sometimes require that marriage partners do that. And I really recommend that for everyone. When the seasons are different and we have learned that life has allowed us to be so dependent on the other partner. I find myself in a marriage where you become dependent on the partner's financial support. And when you find yourself in an international country, I'm just a bit conscious of this, of the picture of a boat that wants to fall, but it's not actually going to fall, but it's moving a lot. But what I want to say is when you find yourself in the requirement to respond and you are in an international country and your relationship are challenged, and you are challenged in your relationship and it is challenging you as a person, physically, mentally, emotionally, what we then recommend is that find a way to, in a non-aggressive way, to find yourself in an environment that is protective. That's what Ribea Elise recommends to anyone out there. Because I myself know that I have been employed myself and I had my own finances and I was so dependent on that and I couldn't ask no one for nothing. And then when I was in South Africa, my salary was even more than my husband's salary. I got to New Zealand and I earned any day more than Dorian Rhoda. And sometimes when you don't have a job and your relationship are challenged, then you are required to respond. And what we educate in that season and what the Elise firmly educates based on our own experiences is that find ways to decide what is protective for you in your season. Be firm on what you are doing. And always everyone always recommend, get help out there. But Ribea Elise also recommend, make sure that you find yourself fine. Because the help out there sometimes find themselves in the same house, in the same environment that addresses the house. And there are sometimes that provides for the house. There are sometimes that is the government itself. We've learned that the police are so much tuned in to so many experiences in our houses daily, that even the employment is that half of the world is in poverty and half of the world has got employment. So always learn to know they always say where you seek help from is important, because our generation is really aggressive and really divided and really abusive the one to the other, and we are really gonna have to learn what help means to us when we are challenged in our relationships. We are really gonna have to learn not to aggress one another easily, and we are gonna have to learn to listen to that. And that is that even the presidential leaders, I always say, are tuned into computers in many people's houses. Even the television teams are tuned, the radio stations are tuned into computers in people's houses. And a whole lot of people are tuned in without us realizing on our social media pages, and they listen to the arguments, and they sometimes see information from YouTube pages and Instagram pages and social media pages that should be protective to our households, but there are sometimes in contrast to that, and there are sometimes stirring more aggression in your house. So you can often tend to notice on your social media page what information are being sifted through to your house, and on your YouTube pages what videos comes through on your page, and that is mostly how people listen into your house and how they sometimes want to stir in the house, and social media forms part of that. And social media knows that we are very honest about what we say, and we really do not even not say it, because we find ourselves in a generation where women has just decided to marry women and men has just decided to marry men because of all the aggressions and the challenges in the relationship. So we do not say that it's going smoothly. No, it's definitely not. By what are being revealed to us, by how the grapes in front of your house look in season, is exactly sometimes what you are being educated about, the environment sometimes about you, and the environment sometimes and talks that people sometimes has about you are exactly visible sometimes everywhere in that. So we always have to allow ourselves to listen to that. That is everything about the universe. Let us allow ourselves, let me just enjoy this, and then we allow ourselves to just listen to the birdies that tweets and that also talks and responds to that. And that is how we find ourselves at the amazingness of the universe, but it also connects with us as human beings. Oh, that's very nice. Oh, the birdies are also enjoying it. enjoying the amazing sound of the season. That is it for our discussion today and for our relationship talk of this month. And that is where we wanted to be at with this month's discussion and with this month's relationship talk. Because it built family in the same season. Very nice, very nice. It's very nice to enjoy to listen to that. Everyone, that is it for me, Ribea Elise, with my business AWOKH. Yes, support our business where you can. We have a store on stripe.com. Go and yes, view our products. And yes, if you can financially support us, then we prefer you do that. We are not difficult on our mentorship programs. Our prices are very in depth. That is, negotiable. We always say that, and we always recommend that our prices, are not gonna be there. So that when you look at the price of the mental wellness mentorship program, and we have started, our pricing is there, and we have started the season of preparation for our mental wellness mentorship program, and it remains available with AWOKH business. So you can decide to order in on our mental wellness mentorship programs. You can decide to order in on our educational relationship discussions that we have. We produce a professional mentorship program, and not professional. We produce a structured mentorship program. We produce and we provide, not produce, but provide a structured mentorship program. Yes, we prepare that, every work that goes along with it. So we produce and we really do all the work ourselves. And we really are gonna do the relationship mentorship program, make the whole season that we have discussed this year available in an amazing one program. And we are also wanting to do it in a more structured way, with the PowerPoint slides, yes, in a presentative way, that in a formal, yes, office formal way. And we are also doing the Leading This Generation talk is also going to be available on the mentorship program after that you can order in on those programs, and we will respond via email. You can also contact us on our WhatsApp. That is +64 21 252 5228. That is in Auckland, New Zealand. So it's +64 21 252 5228. You can contact us to find out more about our educational programs, our motivational programs, our fashion programs that we have available, and our fashion education that we have available. And always also to find out about our podcast sessions. That is it with Ribea Elise and AWOKH business. Have an amazing day further.